Welcome to Tech Blueprint, a window that lets you know the latest technology news in the world. When Modi launched the $23 billion Make in India plan in 2020, no one thought that this massive industrial revolution would end in such a dramatic way. 5 years later, India's manufacturing industry has fallen from 15.4% of GDP to 14.3%, and the $23 billion production incentive plan has only paid 8% of the subsidy funds. This country, once hailed by Western media as a China alternative, is now experiencing the pain of falling from the clouds. Even more ironic is that data from the Indian Ministry of Commerce in March 2025 showed that China regained its position as India's largest trading partner, with a trade volume of $118.4 billion. This result is like a loud slap in the face, completely shattering India's fantasy of trying to achieve economic takeoff through desinicization. In the technology park in Bangalore, Rajesh, the head of Foxconn's Indian factory, looked at the piles of iPhone parts and shook his head. We even have to air freight screws from China, and every day of delay will cost us $200,000. This is a microcosm of the plight of India's manufacturing industry. Although the government has invested heavily in attracting foreign investment, the inefficiency of the bureaucratic system has caused companies to suffer. A mobile phone assembly plant waited for 18 months for approval to obtain subsidies, but what it finally received was a tax inspection notice of $320 million from the tax department. This closing the door and beating the dog operation mode has caused nearly half of the 750 companies participating in the PLI plan to fail to start production. And even Apple had to cut the iPhone 15 production capacity from the planned 10 million units to 4.5 million units. The Modi government has obviously underestimated the difficulty of building a complete industrial chain. When Indian pharmaceutical companies tried to imitate Chinese raw materials, they found that the local chemical foundation could not support it at all. The equipment ordered by solar panel manufacturers was stranded at the port for 3 months because the customs required re-evaluation of anti-dumping duties. What is even more fatal is that when India tried to copy the Chinese model, it coincided with the global manufacturing revolution. The density of industrial robots in China was 12 times that of India, and the automated production line made the demographic dividend a joke. This generational gap is directly reflected in the data. In 2024, India's per capita manufacturing output was only 43% of China's, while logistics costs were 37% higher. The turning point came in New Delhi in February 2025. When Trump threatened in person that the United States would double the tariffs imposed by India, Modi realized that there was no way out of unilateral confrontation. 3 months later, the Indian delegation made a historic commitment in Beijing to relax visa restrictions on China, cancel tariff barriers on 87 commodities, lift the ban on 59 Chinese apps, and allow Chinese companies to participate in joint ventures with minority equity. These measures seem sudden, but in fact they have been foreshadowed. The China-India Border Affairs Consultation Mechanism held 3 meetings in half a year. Although the trade deficit between the two countries was as high as $83 billion, China's direct investment in India surged by 300% within 2 months after the policy was relaxed. Behind this transformation is a cruel economic reality. Once the U.S. reciprocal tariff policy is implemented, 87% of India's $66 billion exports to the US will be hit hard, and the buffer solution provided by China has given New Delhi hope. An internal report of the Indian Ministry of Finance shows that if the Sino-Indian industrial chain cooperation is fully restored, 60% of the losses in the US market can be made up within 18 months. More subtly, China's concessions in key areas, such as allowing Indian generic drugs to use Chinese API patents, have directly revitalized India's $24 billion pharmaceutical industry. But this dragon and elephant dance drama is still undercurrent. At the Chennai port, solar panels with the Made in China label are being quietly replaced with Vietnamese production, the Delhi Policy Circle is circulating the idea of a 5-year transition period, planning to use Chinese technology to complete industrial upgrading and then restart protectionism. This strategic swing is reflected in specific policies. Although investment restrictions are relaxed, Chinese companies are required to cooperate with local consortiums, and the Indian side must not hold less than 51% of the shares. This dancing with shackles cooperation model exposes India's contradictory psychology of wanting to obtain Chinese capital and technology while being wary of economic colonization. The US response is also intriguing. When India announced a 55% reduction in tariffs on US goods, White House Trade Representative Lighthizer praised Modi on Twitter for making a wise choice. This abnormal attitude reveals the shift in the US strategic focus. Instead of forcing India to confront China, it is better to let it become a buffer zone between China and the United States. China, on the other hand, has shown amazing flexibility. Its exports of auto parts to India soared by 83% after the tariff reduction, but it simultaneously transferred 15% of its mobile phone assembly capacity to Vietnam. This strategy of both cooperation and checks and balances ensures China's initiative in the adjustment of the industrial chain. Standing at the crossroads of history, India is rewriting economic textbooks. When Modi said in his Independence Day speech that Asia is big enough to accommodate dragons and elephants dancing together, the applause of entrepreneurs in the audience was mixed with sighs. They knew that this cooperation was essentially a compromise after the failure of manufacturing upgrades. But the data don't lie. The 27 industrial parks established by Chinese companies in India have created 420,000 jobs. And the Mumbai-New Delhi high-speed railway jointly built by China and India has reduced logistics costs by 28%. These tangible results may be more convincing than the empty slogan of Made in India. 4 years ago, India banned TikTok after a border conflict. Now the Indian version of this app has more than 120 million daily active users. The Xiaomi warehouse, that was once seized, now hangs a sign of China-India Intelligent Manufacturing Demonstration Base. These changes confirm the iron law of geoeconomics. When ideology collides with real interests, the wisdom of survival will always win in the end. As Indian Foreign Minister Subramanyam Jaishankar said, "We need Chinese solar panels to illuminate Indian factories, just as China needs our generic drugs to reduce medical costs." This symbiotic relationship based on real interests may be the most stable anchor in the era of broken globalization.